Hi friends, this is your pal Scott, and today we're going to talk about how Daggerheart saved Dungeons and Dragons, in my humble opinion. All right, let's go. All right, save Dungeons and Dragons. What are you talking about, Scott? Yeah, I really think that Dungeons and Dragons that Daggerheart saved Dungeons and Dragons. All right, so wait, saved from what? Well, what, you been paying attention? Where you been at? Living in a cave? Yeah, absolutely. Dungeons and Dragons needs to be saved quite routinely, right? So Dungeons and Dragons came out on February 7th, 1974. Gary Gygax gifted this incredibly powerful tool for processing narrative, this incredibly powerful tool for processing human identity, this unparalleled secular tool for, I'm sorry. February 7th, 1974, Gary Gygax delivers this unparalleled secular tool for processing human narrative. February 7th, 1974, Gary Gygax gifts to the world this unparalleled secular tool for processing human identity. I think it is a hinge in human history, right? The invention of the wheel, the birth of Jesus Christ, Dungeons and Dragons. Like, there's these huge moments in history where humanity leaps forward and gets huge gifts that are just cataclysmically, or cataclysmic is not the correct term, just these massive benefits to human society, right? And it had 7 years, right? So this thing drops, and people are like, "What?" It blew minds, man. It blew minds. People were like, "What is this?" Like, it was really very genuine, right? And then 7 years, so that's 1974, 1981. And American moms are like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Yeah, gift from Satan," right? And they shouted in the streets, "This is quite real. D&D be gone," right? Not like, "Oh, you can't own it, you can't read it, you can't do it. Burn it," right? Destroy it. We do not want it to exist. Okay. Then 2023. Now, those were evangelical Christians who were shouting D&D be gone. So you have these religious zealots, right, who are like, D&D has to be destroyed. It has to be gone. It cannot exist. Burn it, right? 2023, the exact same thing inverted, right? So now you have atheists and agnostics, people who are not religious, shouting D&D be gone, right? And they literally said again, you cannot read it, you cannot own it, you cannot do it. D&D be gone. Burn your books. Burn the books. Really, we were book burning in 2023? The zeros and ones. It was digital book burning. They were saying, "Hey, go on D&D Beyond. I don't care that you spent $600 for the whole package. Delete your account. Burn it," right? D&D has to be saved. It has to be preserved. It has to be protected. It is not like any product on the planet. It is like, this thing had 7 years of bliss, and then people were like, D&D be gone. We do not want it to exist. Then there were 40 years that passed, and a completely inverted, completely motivated differently group said the same words, shouted in the street, D&D be gone, and said again, burn it, right? Not the pages, the zeros and the ones, right? Incredible. Like, Dungeons and Dragons really has this incredible history, right? Now, so now Critical Role comes in the picture, right? And they come in 2015, right? And they changed Dungeons & Dragons forever. What did they do? They created the most powerful, the most memorable, the most compelling Dungeons & Dragons narrative ever written by anyone, right? And so this group, the Critical Role co-founders, came together and they created this story. And they set it into podcasts, they set it into video, they set it into print, and then they literally set it into the small screen, right? With the help of the richest man in the world. That's not an exaggeration. A guy who sends rocket ships to space was like, "Oh yeah, I want to be in the business of Dungeons and Dragons," right? And so you will find, Legends of Vox Machina sitting on Amazon Prime with $500 million shows like Lord of the Rings, Rings of Power. Like that's where Critical Role took, D&D. Now, at no point did Critical Role ever join in this D&D Be Gone, terror, right? But what they did do was on January 2023, when the OGL crisis came out, they were like, oh, King on the Hill looks a little wobbly, right? And so they, and in my humble opinion, they entered into the D&D killer candidate window, right? And people were furious with Hasbro for trying to overturn the OGL, right? And so 3 companies came out and 3 products were launched. And in my humble opinion, every single one of them had zero purpose but to be the D&D killer, right? Oh, what do you mean by D&D killer, Scott? I don't need to define that for you. You know what it is, right? What it is it's the twinkle in the eye of many, many, many OSR creators, many, many, many indie creators who have worked hard, released their entire gleaming tabletop role-playing games, and gotten half the coverage of D&D errata, right? And also the grognard community. Just people who despise Dungeons & Dragons because it utterly destroys their favorite OSR and indie in competition. Every single week, every single month, just destroys it, right? Like, just takes them to the woodshed. Like, it's just, it does it all the time. It's really astounding, right? So you have this, right? And this is going down, right? So 3 games come out. Tales of the Valiant, Draw Steel are all announced, and Daggerheart. Okay, Tales of the Valiant disappeared as like it just plopped out. Like it was like everybody's like, what? Like, okay, whatever. Like it disappeared. It just blew away like vapor, right? Daggerheart came out. That thing dropped like a comet. Okay, it hit shelves in every FLGS and was off the shelves. And I'm not kidding. In my FLGS, it was off the shelves in 20 minutes. It was gone. It was sold in 20 minutes. There were weeks and months where you could not buy it. I'm not sure you can even, actually, you cannot buy Daggerheart. It has never hit the shelves. I bought it out at my FLGS like day 1, right? It has never reappeared there even once that I've seen. It's possible it hit the shelves and was like gone before I even came in, right? I go once a week, right? Another shop I go to, it's never hit. They didn't even know what the name of it was the day 1, and it's never hit the shelves there, right? In my local area, I've never seen it on any shelf ever on any FLGS, any store that's local to me, right? Now you can drive into Philadelphia. I saw it in one shop there once, right? Like it is like this thing blew off the shelves. Okay, all right. So Critical Role releases Daggerheart. The game is real, the game is good, and it is arguably, you could make a legitimate argument that it is better art, better layout, and better writing than D&D. And many people did, right? And then and it's definitely arguable. What there's no question of is the demand. The community was excited and the demand was there, okay? And then, in my humble opinion, Critical Role very carefully waited, right? They very carefully waited to see what was going to go on with it before they announced Campaign 4, right? Whether Campaign 4 would run on D&D or Daggerheart. And I'm not kidding. There was 1,000 channels waiting to report this, right? Including mine, on the moment it was announced. And there were easily 1,000 questions to CR saying, what are you going to do? What are you going to do? What are you going to do? And the reason why was there was this incredibly strong belief that if they used Daggerheart for Campaign 4, that was it. D&D was cooked, right? D&D was cooked. And I think that was true. I think it would have toppled Dungeons & Dragons and made it fall to the bottom of the pack. I think if there's no question. I think if Matthew Mercer had said, we're doing it, we're using Daggerheart for campaign 4, Dungeons & Dragons would have fallen to number 2 tabletop role-playing game in the world, period. Maybe number 20, maybe 200, right? It would have recrafted our world completely, right? It would have threatened major commercial threats that have been on. Dungeons & Dragons has, like, literally has ties to the Tolkien estate at this point. Dungeons & Dragons has a relationship with Lego at this point. Dungeons & Dragons has, like, connections to Fortnite. Like, it's incredible, like, how many commercial connections are attached to Dungeons & Dragons, right? And this would have threatened all of them, right? Critical Role didn't do that. They said, hey, we thought about it. Can we use the game that we spent 2 years building, that we invested at minimum hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of dollars in building, right? In fact, it's almost a certainty. They have almost 70 employees, right? And many of them, and there was 2 years of development. It's almost a certainty that millions of dollars, $2 million minimum, in my humble opinion, was spent on the development of Daggerheart. No two ways about it. I believe, I don't have proof of this, but I'm positive millions of dollars were invested in the development of Daggerheart. I don't think it was in the hundreds of thousands. I think it was in the millions. And you would only need to hit 2 million to do that. I would be shocked if there was less than millions of dollars invested in Daggerheart's development. So they're like, hey, are we going to use, so they came to this decision, right? And they announced to the world, we built it, we delivered it, we recognized that the community completely accepted it. It blew off shelves everywhere it went. It was critically acclaimed and it was commercially successful. We will not use it for campaign 4. D&D is the winner, right? And I think when Critical Role did this, they saved Dungeons & Dragons. For how long? How long did they save? 20 years. I don't think anything can threaten Dungeons & Dragons for 20 years. Nothing. Nobody on the OSR and the Indies have any hope of beating Dungeons & Dragons. And we know this now. How do we know it? Because Hollywood celebrity millionaires with relationships to the richest man in the world, a guy who sends rockets to space, surrendered and said, we gave it our best shot. We could not do it. So now, if you're some, like frumpy, OSR indie creator, and you're like, oh, I'm gonna beat you're gonna beat Dungeons & Dragons. You got millions of dollars to dump into investment. You got 70 employees, right? You're like, you can arguably walk into the, get a meeting with Jeff Bezos, and so you don't have any of that, but you're gonna beat D&D? I don't think so, right? And it's huge. Like, you are looking at when I say this is a moment in D&D history, I've read them. I've read the book. I've read the history books about Dungeons & Dragons, right? The ones that people who are not hired by Dungeons & Dragons wrote, and the one that people who were hired by Dungeons & Dragons wrote, right? And I'm telling you, there will never be another D&D history book written that does not discuss that moment. The moment Dungeons & Dragons was saved by Daggerheart and was given 20 years of smooth, uninterrupted, unmitigated safety, right? And Daggerheart was a real threat. This was a real moment in time. This was something real, and now it's done, right? Like, D&D is unbeatable until 2045, in my humble opinion. Every single word you just heard in this video is my humble opinion. Nothing more, nothing less. The important part is when I get to hear your humble opinion, when you get in the comments and send your traffic. Please consider subscribing and have a fetch millennium.